Well, happy Wednesday. My name is Young, and I am the MSU Venue Director at Riverview Church. Thanks for tuning in on this video this Wednesday. If you were able to tune in on Sunday, you actually heard from one of our pastors, Noel, talk about how the gospel of Jesus Christ frees us to love one another, especially during trying times like this. And as he was going through the last half of 1 Peter chapter 1, there was a couple of verses there, actually the last two verses, that really caught my attention that I want to dive into today. And I'll just read them for you here. This is what the Apostle Peter writes in 1 Peter chapter 1, chapter 1, verse 24 to 25. For all flesh is like grass, in all its glory like a flower of the grass. The grass withers and the flower falls, but the word of the Lord endures forever. And this word is the gospel that was proclaimed to you. During the season that we're in, I wonder how often people now have been thinking about life and death. And this is something that this season actually is something that has brought forth to mind a memory that I have, a big memory, because it was a big instance in my life where back in 2013, I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. And during that season, and much like, if you find yourself also having cancer just strike your family, or you have a loved one that was diagnosed with cancer, you were maybe in the same position where you're thinking about life and death. You're thinking about, is there life after death? And if so, how am I gonna get there? And if you're a Christ follower, you're thinking, man, I hope this gospel that I believe in really is the truth, because it's in those circumstances that you're really gonna start thinking about these kinds of things. And one of the things that I was also thinking about, in my diagnosis, and that has been brought up during this season, is the fragility of humanity, and which is what I think Peter is actually getting here in these verses. He's talking about the fragility of humanity and the realization that he wants these Jewish Christian exiles to have. I mean, if you just read these verses, he's comparing humanity to grass that withers. He's comparing, he even takes a step further, and he compares the things that make people great, the things that bring us glory. So meaning like our thoughts, our achievements, the things that we create. He's saying that those things at one point, the things that make people great, will one day fall. And I appreciate this about Peter, because he doesn't, as these Jewish Christians are going through exile, he's not like brushing it under the rug. He's not saying things like, hey, fake it till you make it, and the suffering is just gonna pass by. He's saying things like, yo, humanity is frail, and this suffering and persecution, this exile that we're going through, I hope that it brings to light that reality. He's not shying away from that. And in fact, he's actually, these aren't his actual original words. He's actually quoting the prophet Isaiah, in Isaiah's time, he was actually saying these words to the nation of Israel as they're going through Babylonian captivity. And you see the theme of suffering and trials and tribulations, kind of connecting these to the nation of Israel back in the Old Testament times and these Jewish Christians that are going through exile. And Peter, he's bringing up these words from Isaiah actually as comforting words, because he's telling them, hey, you see the fragility of humanity. Now let me point you to something that can endure longer than that, something that is more foundational, something that is more sure than our humanity, which is what? He says it's the enduring word of the Lord. And I don't want you to think Bible. I think we can be quick to think that with our Western eyes and Western thinking. But as Peter's saying these words to the Jewish Christian exiles, they're probably going to think about their Old Testament scriptures. They're probably going to think about the sermons that were taught within the first century church in the book of Acts, which all point to what? Things like God's faithfulness, things like God's promises, the reality that God, He is a God who desires to comfort His people, that God is a God who will deliver His people from suffering and trials and tribulations. They're probably thinking about things like the hope that is found in Jesus Christ as the promised Messiah, right? And so, what does that mean for us, though, today in 21st century America, or wherever you're watching this from, as we're in the middle of a pandemic? Well, I think what this means for us is that we too are able to think of God's promises, of God's faithfulness, of God's ability to draw near to the brokenhearted, and to provide swift comfort for those that are in affliction and suffering. And that's not just limited to the Israelites or these Jewish Christian exiles, but they're given to the people of God. And so what I want to encourage you to do after you watch this video is actually, take like 10, 15 minutes, maybe like 30 if you can afford it, to break away from your daily work from home routine or home life and spend some time in this word. It sounds like such a simple thing, but that is what Peter's saying. He's saying, stop putting your stock and your hope in humanity, because clearly it's fragile and can easily break, but place your hope in God's word, in the promises that God has, that is written out in His scriptures. The words that talk about God's faithfulness and His ability to draw near to us during troubling times. And so I want to encourage you to do that, to rest in the promises and the reality that God is faithful, that He can deliver us through suffering and through trials, and to remember and to recall the hope that is found in His word and in the gospel of Jesus Christ. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Hope you found this encouraging, and hope you have a great day. Peace.